Tonight. How many of you are first-time hackers at Hack for Good? Woo! All right, welcome. Very cool. Well, before we dig into a lot of the details, sure when you checked in, our awesome registration staff took care of helping you get to where you need to be. If you pre-registered as a team, I know that you're already set up in a specific space, but if you came as an individual, you'll have an opportunity to hear about the couple different projects that we're working on this weekend and decide which project you're going to work on. One of them is geared towards college students, while the other one is more of a grounds-up project that is geared towards professionals. As a college student, you'd be able to work on either project. We just encourage you to latch onto a team with some other professionals so that you can get that experience. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. If you are involved in the depending on the project you end up on, we'll have handouts with all of the information we're going to talk about that go to each team. All of this information is also available online. We'll talk more about that. And then we have packets for each team too. So be sure if your team doesn't have a welcome packet and one of the project packets that you reach out to us so that we can get that to your team. Again, it's all online, but it's good for making notes and such. With that, let's dig in. Yeah, go for it. He's going to give us some ambience. Oh, yeah. Now, see, I don't look as bad. But this is Hack for Good's 4th year. Every year we adopt a different community project. This is the first time we've adopted 2 projects just because we wanted something that college students could contribute to and see through the weekend. So we feel like if you choose the Isabel's House project, you'll be able to help them with something that they'll be able to start using after this weekend, which is super exciting change this year. This is our 4th year. This event is hosted by the Mid-America Technology Alliance. And with that, I'd like to introduce the MATA president, Jason Arend, to tell us a little bit about MATA and what's happening in the tech community and anything else you'd like to share. Jason?
I want to thank everybody for coming. My name is Jason Arend. I'm one of the co-founders of Eagle Speak and Hero Technologies and the president of the Mid-America Technology Alliance. We started this about 4 years ago, Hack for Good, to be able to bring students and professionals together to donate their skills and experience to really try to make the community better. That's one of the main things of MATA, is really trying to bring students and professionals and businesses and organizations all together to really push Springfield forward in the technology sector. And I know a lot of the people in here, you guys are already actively involved in the community. For those of you that might be new or students or new to Springfield even, there are so many cool things going on. Women in Technology, Springfield Developers, Geek Foundation. I would highly recommend checking all those out. There's a table right outside here where you can pick up a little pamphlet like this, and inside it's got some of the 30 plus different groups and programs going on here in Springfield. The majority of them are free, and anybody can be a part of it. So really, I just want to welcome you all and tell you good luck and really make something kick ass. So have a good weekend, and hit us up if you need anything.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jason. And definitely check out that flyer because it has a link to the MATA website, matasgf.com. MATA SGF, just so that you know what you're looking for. Here is what it looks like. Tons of information about the local tech community is out here. If you go to the events page, there's also a link to the tech calendar with nonstop events that are always kept up to date. So thank you, Jason. Let's see. Next, we want to recognize all of our different sponsors that help make this event possible. We're able to prevent a registration cost from being a barrier to participation. I mean, the way we look at it, you're already giving up a weekend to help out with these projects. So we're really grateful to all of our sponsors, especially Classy Llama and the efactory, but Added Innovation, Gravitate, Logic Forte, Missouri State College of Business, Mid-America Technology Alliance, O'Reilly, Self, WGU, Worldwide Tech, and the Geek Foundation are all of our major sponsors. And then we also have listed our partners who help with things like printing and food and giveaways and drinks, and we just really appreciate all of their help. we have a couple. We're going to hear a little bit more from our sponsors here in just a second, but a couple quick reminders. Bass Pro Marathon is happening on Sunday, which, woohoo, I know Sherry is going to be running in that. The rest of us are going to be trying to get through the barricades. So we're bringing that up so that we'll be posting a map. We'll be posting a map in Slack. How many of you are in the Hack for Good Slack channel? How many of you are not in the Hack for Good Slack channel? Wrong question. A few of you. If you are not in that channel, that's where all of the chat in between different teams and the group as a whole happens over the weekend. That's where we'll be posting things like the map to the Bass Pro Marathon so you can figure out the best way to get here on Sunday morning. But we want to be sure that you're plugged into that chat, so reach out to your team members or reach out to us. You can sign up for a Slack invite online, or anybody that's already in there can send you an invite too. Also, we get we're short at an hour, right? Falls back, falls forward. We fall forward?
We fall back.
Yeah. It's changing, so definitely watch your clocks. I hope so. I hope so. Now, I'm assuming most of you have been to the Hack for Good website. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in a bit, because that's where you're going to find all of the project details that we're covering. We've got printed materials, but all of them are available as PDFs on there. Also important, the generic basic schedule is on the back of all of your badges, but a little bit more detailed schedule with what we're eating is out on the website, and we have moved around the pasta and the fajitas that we had tonight. So pasta is tomorrow at lunch, and the website is correct. So go out there and drill down to the schedule if you want to see more details. We're scheduling mentors to come out after each meal to help answer questions. We hope that you use them as a resource, whether it be user interface or design or back-end or front-end questions or whatever it might be. And we'll post a list of those mentors in the Slack channel before each meal so you know who's available. And we'll try and make sure all of them are in Slack so that we tag them. That way you can PM them, send them a private message, or you can tag them when you're asking larger questions that the whole group might benefit from, so that if they see those and think that they can help you out, they can come seek you out and offer any advice. But just keep in mind, the mentors are around the meal times. And also tomorrow night, if you'd like to invite family out to sort of see what's happening here, since some of you are probably away from your families for the weekend helping out, we'd love to have them come out and join us for pizza. And we'll have some games. Tim's bringing in some classic consoles. We're going to have some virtual reality. Self is going to be demoing some virtual reality, and we're going to hear from them in just a moment. But before that, I'd like to hand it over to Paige with the efactory. And for those of you who don't know, Paige has been with the efactory for a while now. They've been kind enough to host this event for us every year. Is it every year?
Every year.
And so I just wanted to give her a chance to tell us a little bit about efactory and how you might be able to get involved as a software person or designer.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason. So like you said, my name is Paige Oxendine. I'm the program coordinator here at the efactory. First and foremost, much like Jason said on Matt's behalf, thank you so much for coming out, giving up all or part of your weekend to work on these projects and be part of Hack for Good. We love being able to host this event. It's so much fun, and we think it's really cool to see it continue to grow year over year. We're here at the efactory, and we're happy to host, and so please let myself or other members of our staff know if you have any questions while you're here. You had a chance to meet Melissa at the check-in and registration table, and so she's a member of our team as well. We really exist to serve businesses and people who are interested in technology and innovation in Southwest Missouri, and so whether that's private office space for startups, our co-working space, we offer a lot of ongoing trainings and classes, business consulting. We're home to most of the user groups here in the community, so I would really encourage you, if you're not already involved with MATA and with all of those user groups that you're going to find information about in that pamphlet that Jason showed you, really encourage you to get those things on your calendar, come out and be part of everything that's happening here. We also offer tours every Friday morning at 10 a.m. If you you'd like to see this beautiful, fully renovated former turkey processing plant. So we'd be happy to show you around and answer any questions you may have. But thank you so much for coming out, and we're always happy to host.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paige. And just very briefly, I wanted to give Charlie from Self a chance to tell you a little bit about what he's demoing tomorrow at the family night, because if I remember right, he's demoing the exact same product that you're giving away as a pretty major door prize on Sunday.
It's super cool cat beard stickers, and one of you is going to walk away with one of them. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep.
Innocuous Quest.
Woo!
So the criteria to be eligible for this is so we're gonna have teams self-report the amount of time each team member spends working this weekend, and in the spirit of shutting yourself off from reality, if you work at least 15 hours, you'll be eligible for the raffle. For this, and we're gonna trust that you guys, that we're not gonna say a bunch of, I just happen to work exactly 15 hours in 1 minute. What do you know? So we appreciate your honesty, but I'll bring one of these Saturday night, and you can try it out if you haven't tried it already. Oh, it also comes with $75 in gift cards, so you can get some content as well.
Nice. Thank you so much, Charlie.
Yeah,
That's
you
awesome.
got it. So
Very cool.
15 hours at least, please.
Yep. Well, thank you, Charlie. And we debated the best way to handle the raffle, but at the end of the day, we came up with that because we know that so many of you spend so much time on this, and we didn't want somebody who was just dropping in or visiting on Sunday to win it, and then all of you go, what the heck just happened? So I mean, we certainly appreciate realistic numbers, like if you came out and just hung out for meals and didn't really have a chance to help out on the projects. Maybe you didn't spend 15 hours, I don't know. But just keep that in mind. That's sort of where that's coming from, to try and help show our appreciation for everybody that spends a lot of time on the projects. And to put that in perspective, the average amount of time last year was about 22. So that we felt like that was far enough less than the average that hopefully it doesn't eliminate a lot of people. But if you've got some circumstance where you're working remotely or something, but I mean you're spending a lot of time on it, it doesn't necessarily need to be here. Just if you have questions, talk to us. Because
is there a time card app, Jason?
There is, but we don't have one. All right, and with that, thanks again to all of our sponsors. Speaking of, just a couple words from Classy Llama, one of our major sponsors. Greg, could you tell us just a little bit about what Classy Llama does and what they might be able to pick your brain on if you're hanging out this weekend?
Yeah, well, I'm super excited about Hack for Good. It's been something that when I first came to Springfield, I got involved pretty quickly and co-organized in the last 2 years. And then this year, I just get to throw other people's money at it, which is why our name is up there, which is awesome. But I'm really excited to see what comes out of this every single year. Classy Llama, we're an e-commerce agency. We've been growing like crazy over the last couple years, and we're expecting to probably come close to doubling over the next 2.5 years. And so if you guys are interested in opportunities, I would love to talk to you guys. But I'm really thankful for everybody that came to show support for everything that is happening this weekend. So awesome. Thanks, Matta. Thanks, everybody else.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. And so thanks again, Greg. We really appreciate Classy Llama's support. And Greg has been super involved in Hack for Good every year, and we really appreciate everything you've done for Hack for Good as well. Now, we're going to just very quickly go over some rules and expectations. We do recommend that you review these packets that each of your teams receive. I mean, it's the same information that you would have received when you checked in, but really the spirit of it, there are a couple major bullet points. One of them is that anything that you're developing and helping us with, we're asking that it be sort of a joint copyright, to where if it's open sourced for workforce development or for Isabel's house, that they can continue to use it. Now, unlike most other hackathons, that doesn't mean that we're the sole owners or anything like that. We're just, it's still yours. It's just that we're wanting to be able to continue using it, because that's the whole purpose of this weekend, is to be able to build something that everybody can use. So I want to be sure if you're reading that and you're not sure about what it says or how it reads, that's the spirit of it. And if you have questions, please reach out. And then along those same lines, as far as rule stuff goes, I know there was another big blurb about code of conduct. There are a lot of details in there. We're very fortunate that eFactory is willing to host the event here. That being said, I think a reason that they're so willing and excited to host it is that everybody is so awesome about how they treat the facilities here and how everybody treats each other here. So if you have any questions or concerns about anything that you see happening here, or how anybody's acting or what anybody's doing, or anybody that's around the building that maybe doesn't have a badge, please see Tim or I or anybody else with the black staff badge, and we can help figure out what needs to be done or how to address those issues. Because we'd really like to continue hosting here, and we don't want to upset Paige and Melissa, because you don't want to be on their bad side. But with that being said, doors are going to be open from 8 to 8 during the event. So that's a change from last year, where on the weekends you're not going to have to worry so much about having somebody buzz you in every time you leave the building over the weekend. So a big thanks for that. Another big change is that HVAC will continue to run during the days on Saturday and Sunday. So we won't be sitting in the night spots by the Sunday, which is awesome. But they won't be running at night. And part of the reason for that is, I mean, we appreciate the folks that are overnighters and working 40 whatever hours on the project. That's super awesome. But a lot of folks usually leave between 10 and 12 in the evening and get back at like 8. So with it being pretty empty, it's hard to justify leaving it run the whole time. So those are really the main rules. Tim, did I miss any major things in the rule book that you?
21 to drink alcohol.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I made sure of it.
And that's along the lines of, if you see something, say something. I don't think I just coined that, but nonetheless, if you aren't 21, please don't dig into the beer, because if we had underage drinking problems, that would certainly put a damper on Hack for Good and hosting here. But with that, let's move on from the less exciting stuff to the more exciting stuff. We're going to talk briefly about the 2 different projects. We're going to talk about Isabel's house, which is the student-focused project, and then we're going to talk about the workforce development project for Missouri Job Center. And those are going to be just very brief, a couple-minute intros. And after that, we're going to take a short break so that people who are wanting to work on the Isabel's house project can head out to the atrium and hear more about those details. And then after that 2 or 3 minute break, we're going to dive into details of the workforce development project in here, and then open it up to questions. And we have folks from both organizations here. Carmen and Sally, if you can raise your hands, they're with Missouri Job Center here in Springfield. And then Kristin, I know you're here somewhere, but way back there, she's with Isabel's house. Do you have anybody else from your organizations here tonight? Okay, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anybody. So we'll be able to hear from each of them. And with that, Kristin, can you just come up and very briefly tell us a minute or 2 about the project without going into a ton of detail from your perspective, and then I'll have Beck come in and fill in any gaps in terms of technical things that people might want to know about.
How much of Isabel's house do you want me to talk about?
Let's give a background on what Isabel's house is about, and then we'll talk about what you're trying to accomplish this weekend without going into the details.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm Kristin. Thank you all for being here. We're very excited. So Isabel's house is a crisis nursery. So what happens is we take in children from ages birth to 12 when their family is going through any kind of a crisis. So we keep that barrier really low. We really just want to keep kids safe and prevent child abuse and neglect. That's our whole reason for being in existence. But with serving all kinds of crisis, that means that we have lots of needs that we need to know how to meet, which comes to this project. We go through lots of training. When new people start, they go through about 80 hours of training typically in their first year, and then they have to, for licensing and for just to meet all of those different needs for our families and our kids, they have to have 40 every year. And right now we work off of just folders on a server. So compliance is really hard with licensing, and I'm sure you can imagine it's cumbersome. So that's the project, I guess, is a training system for our staff and our volunteers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And we'll dig into the details of what that involves. But basically, college students would be configuring a learning management system, not necessarily building something from the ground up, but taking something that already exists, like Moodle, and plugging in all of the info that they've put together for us. So it hopefully will end up being something very doable in the course of the weekend, regardless of your coding ability. You'll have to do some customization and such, but since you're not building something from the ground up, it seems like it would be a lot more accessible to a lot more folks. So let's talk very briefly about the project for Springfield Workforce Development Center. Sally, can you tell us a little bit about the project and a little bit
about the job center, or
yes and yes. The job center first,
Okay.
and then a little bit
In
about
2
the project.
Sherry, you never say it in 2 minutes. So, first of all, I want to thank everybody. This is really impressive, and to give up your time for the weekend is greatly appreciated. Carmen and I we are City of Springfield employees. Having said that, I want everybody to be clear. We are a city Department of Workforce Development. However, we are not a general fund department. We take no tax revenue. We are all federal grant funded. So we don't have the flexibility with our federal funds to support a program like this, and with federal cuts to our budget, which come at about 6 to 10% annually, nor can we afford it. So not only is this app desperately needed, it's very much appreciated. So having said that, workforce development, we have many programs. We serve youth, we serve veterans, adults, those who have lost their jobs, individuals with disabilities. We have a large re-entry program where we work with justice-involved individuals, those re-entering after being incarcerated. We're down in elementary schools, middle schools, and we're all about jobs and getting people to work. The unemployment rate is fairly low here in Springfield, about 1.9 to 0.2%, so it's pretty tight. We service a 7-county region, so we go to Stone and Taney County, we're in Dallas County, Polk County, Webster County, Christian, Greene, so we have 7 counties we service. But what we're finding now with the job market being so tight, we're serving the hard to serve individuals, those who have significant barriers to employment. And 2 of the most significant barriers to employment are childcare and transportation. That's what we see daily. It's very common. So this app will be a mobile app because it tends to be, no matter what your socioeconomic background is, everybody has a mobile device. I mean, that is the #1 thing everybody has, and they make sure they have. So a mobile app, what this will do, will let them search jobs within their geographical area, whether they are a walker, whether it's a bus, a bike, or a car. So, and you might ask, well, what's the difference? Why don't they just go out and look at Indeed? But if you even put your address in Indeed, it will still pull jobs even from other states. And I will say all of our jobs that will feed into this app are from our state database. They are vetted jobs. They're not 1099 or contract jobs. They are not job work opportunities, kind of work for home opportunities, because a lot of our job seekers, to be quite honest, are just not that savvy at navigating that and discerning what those are. And we really want to move people into employment and off of poverty. So this will allow them to access the jobs within their geographical boundary, no matter what their mode of transportation, through a mobile device.
Perfect. Thank you. And just to add a couple comments to Sally's explanation of the project, there is already a website called MoJobs that you can use to search for jobs, but it's not very new, and it doesn't have the ability for people to. See, I'm keeping it positive. All the positive words. Yes. Less, yeah. Anyway, and that website can be a little bit cumbersome to use. You can't bookmark jobs or send people links to jobs, or even really navigate around without starting at the beginning and going through their workflow every time. And with that being said, there's no way to have the site search based on your current location or notify you of new jobs in your area or anything like that. So we're taking the data from that site and we're basically providing a more modern option for local job seekers to connect with those jobs. And that will be a pilot program for the Ozarks region that's based here in the city of Springfield, which is Greene County and a total of 7 counties in the surrounding area. And assuming that all goes well, this could potentially lead to the state recognizing this as a need and being able to build something along these lines or expand this project and make it statewide, which is super exciting. If that were to come to that, we would basically hand it off to the state and let them run with it. Because Hack for Good's not in the contractor business, but hopefully we'd be in the loop on whatever that bid process looks like. So any of you that are involved would probably have an opportunity to be involved in the bid process, which is a win-win in our opinion. So it could potentially be a lot bigger than Springfield, a lot bigger than the 7-county area, and that's ultimately one of the factors that helped lead us to deciding on this project as our major project for this year. So with all that being said, without getting into a lot of the technical details for the 2 projects, we'd like to give folks that want to work on the Isabel's house project a chance to head out to the atrium, and then we'll have Beck cover more details with Kristin out there. And here in the next 2 minutes, we'll get started talking about project details for the Missouri Job Center. So we'll just give you a couple minutes to head on out to the atrium if you're doing the college project.
Trying to keep it quiet.
I'm going to give you a quick intro to the Hack for Good website, and then you can share that with team members who maybe are coming back. For those of you who haven't spent a lot of time on the Hack for Good website, it's hackforgoodsgf.com. And all of the information that we're talking about today is out on the Hack Night menu under Hack Night Projects. So if you go to Hack Night Projects, you can see a list of the different projects that we've adopted over the years, and the top 2 projects are the links to the current year's projects. We're going to head over to the workforce development page, and this recaps what you've just heard as far as the summary of the project, and then goes into detail about some of the different things that we're going to be covering in this session before we split up into our teams. And how many of you registered as individuals that want to be on teams? Okay. Because some people want to work alone as an individual. How many of you want to are here hoping to work with a team that don't already have a team? I guess that's the best way. Okay. How many of your teams are not full? Okay, so we've got a team that could use another person or two. But when we're done here, if your team is full after we cover all of the details, head on to your assigned room and let the magic start happening. But if you are looking for additional teammates or looking to form a team, you can stick around in here, and we'll help with that collaboration and get you paired up. With that being said, we're just going to go down the list here. I'm going to zoom in for those who maybe don't have this pulled up on your computer. We basically have a PDF with project details, a PDF and short video with the app mock-up that Tim's going to be talking about, some documentation and the login page for a jobs and events API that you can use as a backend, a CSV to download job listing data that was provided by the Job Center, and then another link to the same docs for the API, and then a link to the events API. And then we've got some resources that you can refer to if you're wanting to look up certain colors or find out how to use certain logos, just to make sure that whatever you design is sort of consistent with the rest of the Missouri Job Center look and feel. If you want to go rogue and have some other ideas, we're interested to see what you come up with. I won't necessarily say that's fine too. It just depends on what it is. It could be amazing. It might not be amazing. But nonetheless, those resources are out here, and we'll touch on those just a little bit. But with that, I'm going to dig into the project detail PDF. And again, we have one printout per team for this, and we can print out a few more if you need them, but we figured most people were going to work off the digital copies, so we didn't want to print one per person unless you needed it. The document's pretty lengthy, so we're not going to read through it because you have access to the copy, but it recaps what Sally just shared in terms of the need. We're going to focus more on the project requirements, so I'm going to come back to that, but then I want to browse through here and just show you that there's a little bit more branding information at the bottom of this document. And then we've posted the original pitch, more of the 10-minute version of Sally's talk in terms of what they're looking for and what they're needing. We've posted that video out on the website, so we've provided a link to that. We've provided a link to their original slideshow. And then we've also provided a transcript of her pitch, so you can read through that if you want to look back to what has already been communicated that may be above and beyond what's included in project details. So I mostly want you to be aware of that. I know a lot of you have already either watched that video or were here for the pitch night, so we're not going to go through that in detail. But with that being said, the project requirements, actually there's one more piece here. At the very, very bottom, it didn't make it into the digital version, but it is on the print version. When you get the print version, there is a section that's after, when you go to the bottom of the online doc, it has a project application, which was the original application, the one of the 10 or 12 that we received and considered this year. The printed copy has information about the scoring for the weekend in terms of how we weight scoring for based on creativity and those aspects, user interface and those aspects, execution of the project. And then we have a list of feature priorities. So if you're trying to divvy up features and figure out of what we're getting ready to talk about, where your teams would be best served in terms of focusing their time, refer to this guide because it lists things like from 5 stars, meaning the highest priority, to 1 star, meaning the lowest priority. I'll just give you 2 examples. Allow the user to easily utilize the app from a mobile device. Very important, so that's 5 stars. Now, when we get into the details, we'll mention that that could be a web app that's mobile friendly and could be wrapped into a mobile app later, or that could be a mobile native app, but as you look through the requirements, other requirements are cross-platform. So if you're developing a mobile app, just keep in mind that it would be very helpful for it to be a cross-platform mobile app so that we aren't having to do what you just did on Android or iOS on the other platform. But that's in the list, and that's not weighted as high just because we do want to see what you come up with if you are planning to code in a specific platform. But then when you get down to the very bottom along those lines, the very last one is provide a native installable application for iOS devices, and there's another one that says for Android devices. Those are rated at the very bottom just because we feel like if you come up with something that is mobile friendly and is a web app, we can work on wrapping that in Hack Nights after the fact. So we don't want you to get hung up on building a mobile app if you have zero experience there and zero interest in learning that. But we would love to help you along the way if that's something that you want to pursue this weekend. So be aware of those grids on the back of that, and if you ping me after we've covered all of these details and remind me, I'll update this PDF to include that as well. So with that, under project requirements, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can follow along, but this is really the detail of what we're wanting to focus on over the weekend. We're wanting to develop a mobile-friendly website or a mobile app called Portal to Work that'll help your local job seekers find nearby jobs based on travel time within their geographical location. So meaning if they search from home, they can say, show me jobs near my location, or if they're not at home, they could type in a home address. And then if they're interested in a specific listing, you'd click a button to take them to the original listing on the MoJobs website, where there's a lot more detail about that particular job and instructions to apply for that job, either through their website or through the employer. So you're not having to worry about handling the application process at all. We're trying to connect the job seeker with a job that they might be interested in, and once they find a job and click to look at more details, we hand them off to the MoJobs website, where there are a lot more details than we might be showing in the app. With that being said, as far as specific application features, we're envisioning walking through the app, and Tim's going to cover this here in just a minute. Maybe I'll give this, maybe this would be a good opportunity to have you go through the wireframes and talk about details, and then we'll go back and refer to this list, and I'll just call out anything that wasn't covered in the wireframe. Yeah, not a problem. It's an awesome game. And let me see if I can download this so it's a little easier to work with for you. I'll download this. And then let you see my crazy download folder. Okay, and by the time you're done with this, the video should be done if you want to show that at all.
All right, thanks, Jason.
No problem. Yeah.
Okay, so first off, the heavy caveat is that this is a wireframe, meaning that this is not what it's supposed to look like as the final end result. This is not branded. This is not saying that this needs to be the exact navigation or the exact type of way you fill out the form, or where you put the features or how the features work. So this is just an idea to help people get started if you would like it. You can take this and throw it away and go completely creative on your own if you'd like to. You can use it as a starting point, whatever you want to do. We just wanted to give you a little more context of some ideas of what you can do with it. So to help just kind of springboard to get started. So maybe a splash page that starts out. We don't have a logo for Portal to Work specifically, but the name of the app is Portal to Work, and so that's something to consider. And then when you're, let's see, zoom out a little bit more. See a little bit better here, but so you got some main navigation across the bottom here. This is for finding the jobs, and then here's alerts for new for notifications about jobs or events. Here's favorited jobs, and here's a calendar. And then the first screen that you would probably be taken to is something to put in a location, so you could select use my current location here or fill in a form to put a location in. All right. From there, you get some sort of results of jobs, and then you could map them out here in a smaller area if you wanted to, but you don't have to. You have the different, highlighted information, so this is telling you like 5 minutes by walking, 10 minutes by bus, etc. You have a button up here. You can search, or you can do other settings up here. Again, design it however you want. We're just giving you some ideas on where you can do that. But to try to adjust the search settings, and you'll have access to this on the web too. I know it's kind of small. I'm trying to get the whole screen on there at a time to be able to see it. But this is just the settings that you can look for. So you can change your education level to say, okay, well, I have this level of education, so I want to find jobs that have that requirement, or vice versa. And job types or other things, and then travel. So okay, well, the maximum travel time I could go is 60 minutes, or 30 minutes, or 15 minutes, or whatever else. So you can make some different settings there, and then whether or not you want to show different modes of transportation. And so, okay, well, I don't have a bicycle, or I'm not able to ride a bicycle, so I don't want to include that in my output, etc. And then if you click on one of those jobs, from the results here, you get some details about the job. And this is all coming from the API too, so you can pull in this information and then display it however you like. But you got the job, the company is for, a brief description. You can click more and see more details about it. The important thing is you also have a map here, and then if you click the map button, it takes you to a bigger view of the actual map and from where you are and how you can get to there. And then other high-level things like the salary or the job type, any requirements, etc. You can scroll up and down and see some of that stuff. But you can also kind of drill in and see, by clicking more, you can get to more about that specific job. So in here you can see if you're from your current location or whatever location was selected, how you get from where you are to that job and the other things around it. And you can possibly choose different modes of transportation, etc. And say, okay, well, there's also bus routes for the City of Springfield bus routes that are available through Google on the Maps API, and so if you can incorporate that, that's a cool feature too. That would be helpful. And then you might have alerts if you switch over to the other section here, as well as, again, like native alerts would be awesome if you can have it pop up and a message to them, say, hey, there's a new job or whatnot. You can have alerts about jobs, you can have alerts about events as well. So events are calendar items that are put on, I think they're typically by Missouri Job Center itself, or maybe other events and things too. And so they have that data available. And then you could tap one of those to go into the details of one of them. And then you could also mark a job as a favorite to refer back to bookmark it or save it, etc. And then you could go back and see those ones that you liked and you wanted to come back and refer to later from the app. And you can kind of see, where they're at in conjunction to each other. And events is a kind of a curated list of events that they have that they want to be able to remind people about and let them know. And so sometimes it's job interviews and helping them for the interview process, or maybe it's computer internet basics or different things that might be helpful to job seekers. And you could see details about the event, maybe add it to your calendar, map to where the event is if the event's is at a particular location. So that's a starting point of ideas. But again, it's just something to give you some context on kind of the things that they're looking for. So feel free to be creative with it and come up with whatever you want. And then if you have any other features that you think that might be cool, feel free to ask Sally and Carmen. Carmen, right?
That's right.
Thank you. And also to kind of brainstorm amongst yourselves and figure out something that would be especially helpful.
Awesome. Thanks for putting those wireframes together. I know we had a lot of requests for that last year, and so I'm hoping that gives you some better picture of what the features might look like and how things might come together. Tim also recorded just a short video of walking through the different features, so if you're trying to picture how his wireframes might flow, definitely take a look at that video and you can see what that would look like. But as you see, it's just clicking through the different features that he just clicked through for you and explained. So with that, This document talks about the features that are present in the mock-up. Tim talked about how when the app first opens, it has this mini interview asking for your location, moves on to the map of jobs, then to the job detail page and the information that is displayed, along with links to the job on MoJobs, and that page has a link to how to apply, so that's not necessarily a requirement. You wouldn't necessarily have a link to the job on MoJobs and a link to how to apply unless you felt like that made more sense in your app. We're leaving that basically at your discretion. And then a settings page, like Tim had showed, something where you could update your home address and other key settings like your education level. And then other possible features might include a calendar of events and alerts when new events come up near you. So Tim showed a potential way to handle job alerts or event alerts with recent jobs that have posted near you or recent events that have posted near you, or just browse the jobs and events in general. I'll get into the API in a little bit and how those webhooks might work if you're wanting to get notifications when new jobs or events are posted. But those are my point is the event features are not as critical as the job features. So if you're trying to decide where to start, like focus on the job features first and then move on to the event features. They also will potentially like to have a list of job centers or where your closest job center is or something along those lines. That's a fairly static list. We could certainly roll out an API endpoint with that data if you'd like. I'm going to be taking feature requests throughout the weekend and improving the API throughout the weekend. So I'll go through what we have now, and then as teams come up with ideas, if it's something that I can knock out right away, I'm going to go ahead and just continue to build on the API so that you have access to the data that you need. We talked about notifications very briefly, but the idea being that once an employee has, a future employee, has entered their address or picked their location in the app, you would somehow or another handle saving that information, and then ideally their app would keep track of, would keep pinging the API or however you're going to set that up. I guess we don't have to get into the technical implementation because that's ultimately up to you, but one way or another, you would notify the job seeker that, hey, there's a new job in your neighborhood that you might be interested in, or there's a new event coming up that that you might be interested in. And let's see, we talked about the user interface mockups. As far as technical recommendations on our end, our suggestion is going to be to plug into the Hack for Good Jobs API, because we're working on interfacing that with the Missouri Job Center website, the MoJobs site that I mentioned, so that it pulls the data out of there. Right now we have sample data in there. They're fake jobs, but with real employers. So the combos end up being sort of funny. Like we were looking at some of them earlier today, and before I refreshed the data, it was like airline pilot or co-pilot or something at like Bob's Plumbing. I mean, it was just weird stuff, but it's scattered throughout Springfield, so you should be able to get jobs posted up. We'll dig into the API details in a moment. We do recommend that you use Google Maps API for features like auto-completing addresses, displaying maps, calculating your travel times. Part of the reason for that recommendation is City of Springfield is adamant that their bus data is up to date on Google Maps API, and they highly recommend that if we're going to calculate transit times by bus, that we go that route. They just, no pun intended, but they just said that that's their go-to as far as pushing data out to the community. And so another technical recommendation is that you build a mobile-friendly web app that uses geolocation and notification features in the mobile browser. If you aren't developing a native app, it'd be something that can take advantage of those benefits. That would certainly be in your favor. Yeah, you can certainly demo the web app on Sunday, or you can convert your web app to a mobile app for each platform using tools such as Cordova. We're more interested in seeing a working thing than hearing how long you spent trying to get it to work with Cordova. So keep that in mind. If you do go the web route and you're making a lot of strides on the web side of things, don't wreck like half a day just trying to wrap it, because we can always deal with that later. But if you have experience there and can deliver something that's already very mobile ready, that's a huge win. And with that being said, if you're building a native mobile app, I already touched on this, but please consider using a cross-platform tool like Xamarin Forms. There are many others that can use the same code to build native apps on iOS and Android. And if you aren't familiar with Xamarin Forms, I highly recommend coming out to Dev Night next week, where they will be talking about Xamarin Forms. Just a quick plug for Springfield devs. Data sources. I mentioned the Jobs API, and we're going to go ahead and dig into that now. But it'll provide current job listing data sourced from the Mojob website. And this is the data. These are the preferred listings or the vetted listings that Sally mentioned. We're basically going to pull that data and check for changes throughout the day. And so anytime new jobs come up, you'll be able to register a webhook where we'll send you a notification of those new jobs. That way you're not having to constantly pull the API. Now, how you handle that on your end is totally up to you, but you would treat that API just like a Google API or something else. You'd build your own standalone product or app, but you'd have access to pull data from that. So let's just briefly dig into that so that you can see what that looks like. There are links to that out here on the Workforce Development page under Job Events API. We've got some docs. I'm just going to very briefly touch on them, and we've got a login page. So when you go to the login page, you either log in if you already have a username, or you would register for an account. And I've tried to keep this as foolproof and fail-proof as possible. So when you register for an account, it's not verifying emails or anything. Like, you'll instantly get an account. I can say John Doe at example.com, heck for good. And as soon as you do that, you're on the API dashboard. And we'll dig into what that looks like and how you can use that. But as it stands right now, it just shows what email address you're logged in as. It shows your API token that you can use, and we'll run through an example of how to hit the API here, but then I'm glad to come around and help teams interface with the API. And then here's where you can plug in your webhook and you can update your settings, and then it'll tell you the last time we've sent data to the webhook. I'm planning on having a little bit more information available there. If you want to verify the payload you get from the webhook, we provided the secret, and we have information in the docs about all of this, so good chance to switch over to the docs. Basically, the docs have info about the API dashboard, which I just covered, info about authenticating to the API, and then info about the main two endpoints. And I'll expand on this over the weekend as well, but we have an events endpoint and a jobs endpoint. That's alphabetical order. I thought about putting jobs first just because it is the priority, so in case you're wondering why it's first. We just looked at what that dashboard looks like. Quick note on the API token, shouldn't be an issue for anybody, but we are rate limiting the API to 60 requests a minute. So if you are, for some reason, needing to hit it more often, you can certainly set up a second account. Like if you've got multiple team members and just for whatever reason, whatever you're doing is barely going above that, let us know. If you have a need above and beyond that, talk to me and we can look at increasing that rate limit. Let's see. On the authentication side of things, again, very simple. You've got 3 different ways to authenticate. How many of you have worked with an API before? Okay, so none of this should be new info. I'm going to switch over to Postman and just show you what a call looks like. But basically, the docs describe you can tack the token onto your query string, or you can add it to your request payload, or you can add it as a bearer token header, which means that you should, no matter what you're developing in, one way or another, you should be able to hit the API without any problems. We're not doing any OAuth or anything like that. We figure we'll tack on better authentication after the fact. I'll show a demo in just a minute. But when you look at your, let's scroll down to job. Well, yeah, scroll down to jobs here. On the jobs endpoint, well, let me just. Sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit because I want to get you out of here so you can get started. On the events endpoint, we talk about some parameters and your response format. So all of the different things that come back, the jobs are the same way. It talks about what the JSON object type is, or what the type is, whether it be number, string, or object, and the description including format of different dates and things so you know exactly what to expect. And then here's an example return, but I'm going to just switch over to Postman and show you. How many of you have worked with Postman before? Awesome, more than I would have expected. So very cool. And for those of you who have not seen it, I can publish my collection here, but basically, let's say you go to get jobs. I'm going to start a new request in Postman, just so people who've never seen this before know exactly what they need to do. I'm going to copy the link from this jobs dashboard. Okay, so now we have jobs.api.sgf.dev, which is a live domain name. And then I'm going to go to the docs, and I'm going to go to the beginning of, let's look at events, for example, since that's the first one here. I'm going to paste, that endpoint goes after the host name, so I'm going to paste that in here. I'm hoping everybody can see it okay. Maybe that's a little bit better. So I paste that in, and then I'm looking at our documentation at the authentication. I'm going to use the easiest one. So in this case, we need to add this after it. If that's in your code, that means that you're going to have a variable here, but I want the actual token. So I'm going out to the jobs dashboard and copying that token, and I'm pasting it here, and I'm clicking send, and it's asking to connect, because that's me being dumb about security. But the end result is fake job data from Springfield. So for example, we have the Boyer Raynor hiring event at Amax Hewitt Realty, and contact info. I'll be working to populate the event side with live data this weekend, and then working to populate the job site with live data next week. The reason for that is we're planning to push new jobs every few minutes. So if you do subscribe to webhook type notifications, you're getting those notifications regularly. And we're also looking for feature ideas. One possible idea would be giving you a button on your dashboard where you can request an event. So rather than waiting the minute or two, you're like, okay, I want to test, and you push that, and then it just fired off to you. But the structure of the events is basically each event with an embedded location. And then if we look at the same thing on the job side, literally all I'm doing is changing that endpoint from API event to API job, not Jack.
So what are the events for?
The events are things like hiring events at the job center and at local employers. So if there's something nearby where you'd have an opportunity to come out and connect with the employer directly and not just put in an application, they definitely want people to know about those events. Is that a pretty accurate summary? Now, if you query the job endpoint, it's pretty much the same idea. You've got some stats about when it was posted. You have information, embedded information about the employer, and then you have information about the locations of the job. And I'm pointing this out because an event is always tied to one location, but a job could potentially have multiple locations. For example, Mercy might be hiring for a position at both at different clinics throughout the 7-county region. So we've embedded those locations as a separate list of data under the job. And this particular one has 3 locations, which keep in mind, even though they're local businesses, it's like an answering service and a retirement community and Central Trust Company. Probably not what you would see in a real posting, but the important thing is those are all mappable in the local area. And if you're trying to look for jobs near your near your end user, you need to be aware that that a job might have multiple locations. So you're checking the proximity from the user to each of those locations. And then this goes on and on and on. But this allows you to do an initial query of all of the data we currently have before we start using webhooks to send you additional data. And if you, I don't know how many of you have ever used webhooks? Okay, so a few of you. So basically the gist of it is that when you set up a webhook, you have the ability for us to send data to your website. And I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail here. If you get to that point and you want a walkthrough, I'm glad to do that on a per team basis. We will link to a website that is called like webhook.site, I think, where you can basically plug that in as the webhook and have us send it data, and you can see the data structure. What I want to get to, though, is that the data that we send to your webhook is structured exactly like the data in the API. So you only have to parse one format of data. With that being said, as far as technical requirements, we have a future roadmap of potential features. We also mentioned device compatibility, ideally covering 90-ish% of the population, so Android 5 and iOS 12 plus. But talk to us if you have questions about that. And then with that, I think we've pretty much covered all of the detail and want to open it up to questions. Do you?
Resources. Just go ahead just a little bit further.
Thank
Just
you.
So you're aware, this is for your reference if you want them, but there's references to resources as well as guidelines by Google and Apple and Microsoft on how to design mobile apps and what they should look like and best practices and all that stuff, as well as links to like Google fonts that you can download or icon sets or all that type of stuff. It's all free. So it's a reference if you want it.
All right. So let's open it up to questions. Levi, kick it off. What do you have?
Just for like reference later, do you happen to have like the original design files that you put those prototypes in?
Yes.
That we can download?
No.
Thank you. Well, will you tell us which icon set you use?
Yes. I will.
We'll link to it on this resource page. Good question. Good questions. Keep them coming. Ben.
The
and then
mode
Jace.
jobs had like actual like job categories. Is there? The API doesn't appear to have any.
Correct, but we can add them if.
Filtering.
The question is, do we? Would you want to let people browse by job category, and do you feel that the job categories were especially helpful out on the website? If so, we can certainly add those.
I think when you're looking at distance,
Yes.
y'all are really smart, and I don't get any of this stuff.
We're so intimidated. I was in the library like, I don't know what any of this is. But go ahead.
I think when you're looking by distance, probably if you're looking for job titles, it would eliminate a lot.
Okay.
If you're strictly looking at location for where you want to work.
Okay. So her comment is if you're searching by location, you're probably going to be a lot more interested in job titles than job categories. I could certainly see where we might want to show the job category on the detail page. But are you suggesting possibly filtering by job category? Because there are a lot of categories out there.
Yeah, I mean, I just know that in the filter in Mode Jobs, it lets you like filter by category job.
Right.
Accounting versus clerical versus, and so maybe the job titles are enough.
Well, and one of the things about the job search when you do that way is sometimes the jobs go in under titles that make not a lot of sense. You know, it may be an accounting job or an administrative assistant, but when you read the title, it's called something else.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the categories can be useful, but when I have staff meeting with participants or customers, I tell them to really look at everything because sometimes they don't catch the right category when they get them in.
Well, I'll plan to pull the categories and embed the category like we embedded the location in case there are multiple categories. Does that sound okay?
Perfect.
Okay. No, good observation. When I looked at the site, I was torn on whether or not it was helpful to add it, but I can certainly do that. And I'll add in fake categories right away just so you have the structure to work with. Yeah, that's fine. Jace, what do you have? I know your hand was up next. right behind Ben.
2 questions.
Yes.
Do you need to be signed in to be able to use the app
No,
or website?
there's no real authentication there.
Okay.
I mean, it could be as simple as just having local storage of your home address, but it probably needs to be more complicated than that.
So you should be able to sign up.
We're going to leave that up to the teams.
Okay, and then I know you mentioned it in the video. You asked it in the video. Should you or would you like it to link into like LinkedIn so they could sign up and it would pull all that info in? That sort of junk.
I kind of have mixed emotions about that, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, the main, I can probably field it based
Okay.
on your talks. The main concern is that there's so much noise on LinkedIn that it makes it hard for them to help people connect with.
No, I just mean to sign in.
Oh,
all
the
that
sign
info.
in link.
Like to sign up, to create an account using your LinkedIn info.
Oh.
Just the biggest takeaway on that from my perspective is it needs to be super easy to get in, low
Yes.
barrier to entry. You don't have to have an account to use the app. If you want to let them create an account, etc.
Right.
If you want to use some sort of social media login, etc. That's going to be something that's an ancillary feature. It's not the core of what they're
Right.
looking for. So
And-
if you want to add that as a bonus feature, or something that's like, hey, by the way, you can do this, and that way if you go on from a website later or something, it remembers you, etc. That's
Right.
great. But it's not something that we need for the weekend project. So again, that's something you could add, but
Yeah,
not the core.
Yeah, we're envisioning something where they may have features and a location saved in their phone, but if they got a new phone, they would just have to put in their location again and then favorite jobs again. So keep it super simple. The KISS, right?
Yeah, simple.
Yeah, because I'm being positive, didn't say stupid. And but with that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, see.
Long term, you might want to add more of that stuff. but
You
just for
have that in there maybe in settings or something where maybe set up an account. Frank, what do you have?
On your API, can you pull up like the secondary requirements of jobs, like the ability to, like you have to have the ability to lift 80 pounds or like non-education requirements?
We can certainly add that. It's not in there right now. That information is available out on the MoJob site, and so what I envision on some of those, the part of the problem is it's hit and miss in terms of how it's categorized in MoJobs. Sometimes it's called out separately and available as data points. Other times it's embedded in the job description. So I'd hate for somebody to rely on filters for that just because we don't have a reliable way to provide that data. So I will say on the education side, yes, we can certainly provide that. And so if you feel like you have a good way to rank that, or you have some ideas there, what I've been torn on, and the reason it's not in there yet is if I would just have maybe a list of requirements and rankings, or leave the actual implementation up to the teams. But the education is on my short list of things to add tonight or early tomorrow. So I'm interested in feedback there. But we can take that offline. Yes, Ben.
Are the API results connectable to the actual MoJob listings?
They will be.
Okay, so
Right
they
now,
will be like
it's fake
actual
data, so
IDs?
it just links to a URL with a parameter that's hitting the Hack for Good site.
Gotcha. So,
But yes,
there
it
are
will.
URLs in there that I'm
We
aware of.
will. My plan is to have a URL that you can hit that will redirect you to the MoJob page, because the problem is you can't link directly to it. But I've come up with a way that I think is going to allow us to have like a little sort of code connector on our end, where you send to a special URL on our end, and then it basically builds up the session that you need to go directly to the job at the state. Because as it stands right now, the state website does not support that. So that is coming soon.
Do you have a URL parameter?
Yes, there is already a URL parameter, and there's a URL image parameter as well.
Yeah, you can plug those in for now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just rely on that for now, and that will end up taking you to the event, or the event listing or the job listing, instead of to a page on Hack for Good. Yes, either one of you.
Do you need
Go.
an employer side to the app, or just?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, because all of that comes from the state, so they plug it in at the state. Good question. Yep.
On MoJobs,
There could be.
Well, I'm saying like on MoJobs, is there a login?
There is a login area on the MoJobs website. We could potentially integrate with that, but I'm hesitant to handle MoJobs names and passwords even if we're passing them through.
Yeah.
But it's something that we could look at.
I was just thinking, if I'm a person applying for a job and I click on it, I want to hurry up and upload my resume and push send.
Absolutely.
So are we implementing something on that in
No,
the
they
mobile
would.
app, or on the website it's already there?
They would go out to the MoJobs website and handle it on there. We wouldn't handle any of that in the app. But did you have a
Well, I was just gonna
additional
say,
comment?
Yeah, on the MoJob site, they can go in, put in their information, and it creates, they call it a resume, that's not what I would call it, but it's something that the employers are used to seeing.
Okay.
So, if they were gonna push out a resume, that's probably not the one I would want to push out. I would want to be able to add one, upload my own. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
'Cause
But
it's not a good resume
right.
to use.
Sure, but as it stands right now, we're not planning any type of feature where you would store your information in the app and submit it to employers either through MoJobs or otherwise. As it stands, we would send the user on to MoJobs using the URL that's provided from the API, and then when they're on that page, they would click on the apply link. We could certainly add an apply like a URL apply type value in the API if you wanted to have a direct API button or a direct app button that goes to the apply page.
So each time they click on a different job, they're going to go to the MoGov's website and they'll have to log in every single time?
No, they won't have to log in. You asked if there was an ability to log in, but you don't have to log in to view that stuff.
Okay.
I'll have it set up so that you can view it publicly.
Okay.
Ideally, the information is still in the API. You would display to them if they click just at that first touch point of, okay, it's in a list or whatever, however you display it, you get some details there, and then they can click more or some other way to get into the rest of the website. That way they can keep browsing on their phone between jobs without having to go into the other site and then back out and all that. So.
Right. Ideally, they'd be able to filter down which jobs they're interested in from the app pretty well just by looking at the title and the beginning of the description, and then they would absolutely go out to a separate website to look at the full job detail and apply for the job or find out how to apply.
And we're saving like their favorite jobs that they've looked at?
We are saving the favorite jobs that they've looked at in the app, which would be separate from anything that they look at on the website. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good question.
That could be however you want. You can have them press a button that says favorite, or you can just try and go off of history they looked at, or that's all up to you.
Mm-hmm. Nope.
Good.
Well,
Ready to go, I can ask it direct.
yeah, we definitely want to wrap up so people can form teams and get started. We can take maybe a couple more questions, and then I'll stick around in here for at least the next 10 or 15 minutes to field questions. And I know that Sally is needing to get going here really soon. So if you have any questions that you need to direct to them, now is the good chance to ask a couple of those questions. And Tim and I can field most other questions, but they'll be available on Slack throughout the weekend as well. Do you have any questions specific to Missouri Job Center that you don't think that Tim or I might be able to handle? No pressure, because if we can handle it, then you'll know.
So I was going to ask, is there any value from your perspective to give them a way to reach out to you related to the jobs? Whether it's to send a pre-formatted email or a notification that they're looking and they want help. Is there any kind of reach back to the actual job center?
I mean, Carmen, you can field it. I mean, but I think there's value in that, and we would love that. You know, we do see, we have 3 locations, one in Branson, 2 in Springfield. We also do pop-up job centers around our different counties, and you'd be surprised how many job seekers that we see at our pop-ups that have never stepped foot in the job center. So I think there is some value to that, to drive some traffic.
And are they able
need services outside of what, you know, the app can give them.
And 2 questions sort of related to that. One, what percentage of your users would you expect to have a MoJobs website login? Is that pretty low, or do you have a lot of people that have logins and use the features that you can only use when you're logged in?
As far as having a MoJobs registration, there's probably a lot of people that have it that do not realize.
Okay.
Because if you receive food stamps, you're automatically enrolled in it, and if you've ever been on an employment.
I'm asking
you're-
about people that know about it and use it. What percentage of people do you think know about their login and actually use the login? So it's good to know that people that are receiving food stamps and such have the login, but if
Well,
I go...
think they're farther along in the process than they think they are, I think is where I'm going with it.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. But
Does that
They
make
don't
sense?
realize it.
they don't realize they have access to it.
How many of them are
No.
actually using it and would want to be able to continue using the website login?
If you go out to the site, it says you have to log in to access these features. I don't recall what the features are, but I'm wondering how many people in general use that. If it's a large number of the clients you work with, or if they generally, when they go to that website, never try to put in a name or password. They just use the website publicly. Or do none of them use the website to search for jobs?
Okay, so let me see if I'm following.
Let's see. Mo,
When you
jobs.
go to our website, you're asking how many people log in to use that? So, since our website is free of service to employers,
Mm-hmm.
there are employers that only register jobs on here.
Mm-hmm.
And Sally has said they're all vetted. So, but job seekers, I think there's a lot now, numbers are.
Okay.
Do you have to log in to find the job?
You do not.
You have to log in though to find how to apply.
Okay. So that's good to know.
And the other
That's
thing
one of
on
the
our
features.
website, if there are a lot of specific criteria,
Mm-hmm.
you have to meet those criteria
To apply.
be able to see it.
Oh, to even see it.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Well, what I was getting at, the reason I was trying to get a feel for how many people log into the site, and it sounds like anybody who wants to apply for a job needs to log in. Then the second question was, do they already have a way through the website to reach out to you for assistance without calling? Yeah. Can they reach you through that, or would they need to pick up the phone as it stands today? I'm just wondering if Ben's question is already addressed, and maybe we can piggyback off of that somehow, or if that's something that would be a valuable feature in the app to be able to reach.
You would have to call.
As it stands right now, you'd have to call. Okay, so that could potentially be a great feature. Sorry about the roundabout way of trying to figure out if it was
But I
already
think,
solved.
Too, if they've not used it and they had a way to push a button that was easy to say, I'd like to be contacted by somebody to discuss this or to talk more about the services, I think that would be great. And that would be so much easier and less cumbersome than my answer a while ago, but also for them to be able to find out about those resources.
Until you get 50,000.
Well, it would be a.
That would be a good problem.
A blessing in disguise.
It would be a good problem, but it would be you'd have to look at doing some things differently.
We would find another way. We'd figure it out. That'd be exciting, though. Okay. Any other final questions with the group, or if not, we'll let everybody that has a team head out, and everybody that's looking for teammates to stick around here, and you can ask me questions if you have any. Any final questions before we break up? Otherwise,
Real quick.
Go ahead.
Make sure that you join the Slack channel. It's Hack for Good. If you don't know how to get in, contact us. We'll get you set up. And there's a channel on there called Workforce. So that we'll be posting updates like UI kits or other things like the icons, etc. Again, there's design resources available. There's a ton of them around. But any questions you have like that, keep asking them on Workforce, because that's where Sally and Carmen and the others will also be looking for answers.
Please.
keep it simple.
Just seeing how we answer questions. Don't
Keep
make
it super simple. All right. Well, thank you very much.